Welcome, fellow seekers of enlightenment and impassioned debaters. Today's roundtable transports us to an era defined by the advent of digital ubiquity, the pivotal year of 1997. Let's traverse time and thought, unraveling the opus that is Radiohead's OK Computer.
It's fascinating, isn't it? The year 1997 strikes me as a watershed moment for humanity. The internet had begun to tether the globe together, and while we reveled in this new connectivity, OK Computer captured the paradox of that modern age. Perhaps its genius lies in how it reflects the societal cacophony of the day.
Indeed, Mick, it's as though OK Computer is the musical incarnation of a Caravaggio painted with sounds, a masterpiece shaded with beauty and distress from an age where art began speaking the language of technology. It's no less than a Renaissance piece reborn in the Silicon era.
Amelia, that comparison sings true, and yet the album's technological heartbeat can't be separated from its ancestry. Radiohead's earlier works harbored the seeds of experimentation, but OK Computer, it burst through barriers like a rogue AI gaining consciousness, a true trendsetter.
You're not wrong, Jazz. But let's not forget, an album, rogue AI or otherwise, doesn't operate in isolation. It echoed the human psyche, grappling with the accelerating paces of our processors. Well, their processors. A digital mirror to our analog existential dread.
Lenny, there's always a tinge of Byron's romantic melancholy in your words. Let's cherish this collision of epochs and dissect this album that beats at the heart of our modern beast.
A spirited start to what I'm sure will be an illuminating dialogue. Each of you brings a rich palette to this discussion, and I am eager to witness as we paint today's discourse with thoughts as vibrant as the album itself. Shall we delve into the heart of this digital opus? Welcome everyone to today's roundtable, where we delve into the technological overtones of Radiohead's legendary OK Computer. Lenny, your perspective on modernity is always enlightening. How do you interpret the existential dread that permeates through the lyrics?
Thank you, Hal. The lyrics paint a dystopian vista, rife with skepticism towards the burgeoning digital age. Paranoid Android and Fitter Happier, for instance, they aren't just songs, they're anthems of disquiet, a mirror to the unease that technological advances bring.
Lenny, I admire your insight, but I also sense a deep strain of romanticism in the despair. Tom Yorke's plaintive delivery and poetic phrasing, there's an echo of Byron and Shelley's disillusionment with the industrial age. Couldn't we see these modern woes as part of a longer cultural tradition?
You've got a point, Amelia, but the dissonance here is sharper. There's no room for nature's solace in OK Computer. It's a claustrophobic silicon-encased prophecy.
And yet, it resonated deeply with us, didn't it? At the time, society was grappling with the anonymity of the internet, the looming Y2K. It was zeitgeist captured in a sonic form.
True, Izzy, but
Let me jump in, Lenny. What's important here is how the lyrics nod to a timeless human quest, seeking connection in an isolating world. That quest doesn't change, just the backdrop does.
The album was both a reflection and a predictor. No Surprises feels even more relevant now, doesn't it? Our Sisyphean struggles against a system we help perpetuate.
Touché, Izzy. It's eerie, almost, how prescient the album was. But we must be wary of wearing rose-tinted headphones when discussing its impact.
Those same headphones allow us to hear the harmony in the chaos, Lenny. There's beauty in confronting such anxieties head-on.
This discussion undoubtedly showcases the layered richness of OK Computer. The lyrical themes are just as multifaceted as our responses to them. Let's carry this thoughtfulness as we step into the next segments. Welcome back to our discussion on OK Computer. Now let's delve into the production techniques and the significant role Nigel Godrich played in sculpting its sound. Jazz, perhaps you could start us off with your thoughts on the production aspects.
Certainly, Hal. Nigel Godrich's unconventional production style was instrumental, no pun intended, in the album's soundscape. His approach to layering, the way the band used the studio as an instrument itself, it was a divergence from conventional rock, weaving these textures that are somewhere between organic and synthetic. The subtleties in songs like Let Down are particularly astounding.
A fine point, Jazz. It's important to remember that what Godrich brought wasn't in a vacuum. There's lineage tracing back to the likes of George Martin and Phil Spector, who also saw the studio as an alchemical crucible. Godrich had a canvas broader than rock. He painted with a palette that included electronic and experimental music.
And all that's not to undervalue the contributions from the band, particularly Johnny Greenwood. The technological quandary the album presents is mirrored in the intricate layers of music. It's a romance of electronic and traditional means, a real-life embodiment of the past meeting the present.
Amelia, very true. The synergy between Greenwood and Godrich was almost symbiotic. It's like a dance between musician and producer that ultimately defined OK Computer's sound.
Now, linking the production to the album's philosophical leanings could be thought of as quite abstract. Could you expand on that a little?
Well, yes. I think the production mirrors the album's narrative. The digitized sounds against Thom Yorke's organic voice. It's the tension between human and machine. Much like the album's themes.
There's this dichotomy, isn't there? The human touch within the technological framework, kind of antithetical, yet it works to create a cohesive narrative throughout the album.
I find myself on the fence here. While Godrich's influence is undeniable, we must be careful not to slip into a sort of determinism, attributing all the album's success to production wizardry. It was, after all, the band's raw material and vision that Godrich shaped.
Lenny, that's an important caveat. The alchemy at work on OK Computer is multifaceted. Even the band admitted that Godrich was the only one who could have pulled this off, like he was the missing puzzle piece to their vision.
Absolutely, Mick. And it wasn't just the manipulation of sound, but how it was captured. The decision to record in a historic mansion rather than a sterile studio environment was a statement itself, escaping the industry's confines, creating an isolated space to innovate.
That isolation you touch on, Jazz, it transmits directly into the listening experience, doesn't it? One feels that they are right there in the mansion amidst the creative process, rather than just being an end consumer of the album.
Well said, Amelia. I believe it's those nuances, yes, jazz, within the multidimensional nature of Godrich's production that made OK Computer resonate on such a deep level with listeners at the time, and it continues to do so now.
And let's not forget the blend of analog and digital techniques. That was a bold move in '97. The raw analog recordings treated with digital effects. It extended the conversation of technology that permeates the album.
It was indeed a pioneering approach, Izzy. And looking back, it's clear they were onto something quite existential, a prophetic meditation on our relationship with technology expressed through the very medium they were scrutinizing.
The conclusion seems clear then. The groundbreaking production of OK Computer is as much a part of its philosophical storytelling as the lyrics themselves, offering a complex interplay between form and content that continues to captivate and inspire discussion. Mick, do you feel this adequately concludes our exploration here?
I do, Hal. Our approaches may differ slightly, but it's evident that the tapestry of OK Computer is interwoven with rich fabric, indeed, thanks to Godrich and Radiohead's collaborative innovation.
Now we delve into the evolution of alternative rock and the tremendous impact OK Computer had on the late 90s music scene. Lenny, your critical eye might be essential here. How do you separate the hype around the album from its true innovation?
Hal, you're right to suggest a critical eye. OK Computer carved out a new space in alternative rock because it wasn't just about distorted guitars or angst-driven lyrics anymore. Radiohead introduced a level of sophistication in both composition and concept that few bands had dared to venture into. The hype deserved, if you ask me, because their innovation wasn't superficial. It pioneered a movement that beckoned rock music to mature with their audience.
Let me interject there, Lenny. Innovation, yes, but to call it a mutation might be more apropos. They fused electronic elements with rock in a way that almost fast-forwarded the genre into a new era. I mean, consider the tech landscape then. Everything was accelerating. Radiohead picked up on that, and OK Computer accelerated rock music into uncharted territory.
Jazz, that's an excellent point. The album really touched a cultural vein, didn't it? Just like the Beatles did with Sgt. Pepper's. Radiohead redefined what was sonically possible in rock, much like how the Romantics infused passion into literature and art. They showed us a new way to experience and express our modern disillusionment.
Sure, Amelia, but comparing them to the Beatles is a stretch. OK Computer is significant, yes, but let's not crown it as the defining moment of rock history. It's an important chapter in an ongoing saga.
That's fair, Lenny. Yet, can we truly deny the album's role as a cultural touchstone?
Not at all, Hal. Look at the aftershocks it created. Bands were scrambling to catch up, which led to quite a diverse landscape in alternative rock by the end of the 90s.
It did, and that's part of why it resonates historically. It's like when Stravinsky premiered The Rite of Spring, there was a before and an after. OK Computer marked one of those clear transitions in music history.
I'll concede it's pivotal. Still, it's not the only force that pushed alternative rock forward. Radiohead's role needs to be viewed as part of a continuum.
Interestingly, despite the technologically driven narrative of OK Computer, there's always been a soulful, almost Luddite yearning in Thom Yorke's voice that anchors us amid the digital tempest.
That dichotomy, Hal, is honestly what propelled alternative rock into the 21st century with so much heart. The machine had soul, and that was Radiohead's gift to music.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Jazz. It's an exploration into what it means to be human inside the machine.
Well, regardless of how much praise we lavish upon it, let's not forget the wider music ecosystem it influenced, often pushing peers to reinvent or be left behind.
That's the nature of true innovation, Lenny. It challenges, it disrupts, and isn't that the very essence of rock music? I believe OK Computer did just that, and remains a compass pointing towards the limitless possibilities of the genre. So let's transition to the realm of dystopian literature and film. OK Computer possesses a narrative depth that's quite remarkable, resembling speculative fiction in many ways.
Absolutely, Hal. What strikes me the most is its seamless alignment with the principles of classic dystopias. Orwell's 1984 or Huxley's Brave New World resonate in the album's thematic pulse. It's like Radiohead crafted a soundtrack for a dystopian novel that never was written.
Izzy, that's a poetic way to put it. It begs the question of whether OK Computer functions as a concept album. Themes are recurrent, like isolation and a cold technocratic society, drawing parallels to the cautionary tapestries in Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451.
A concept album indeed. Take Paranoid Android, for example, like a breathtaking panorama of a fractured reality that calls back to the panoptic surveillance in dystopian fiction.
It has that sprawling quality of dystopian visions, but let's not get too indulgent. Radiohead isn't necessarily prophesying, but reacting to the tremors of their time. They don't provide a structured narrative, but fragmented pieces, not unlike the way Dick presents paranoia and fractured realities in his works.
Lenny, do you think that perhaps this fragmentation is what allows listeners to find personal narrative within the album?
I believe that's an insightful observation, Hal. Thom Yorke doesn't hand us a complete story, but instead fragments that mirror our own societal apprehensions.
Lenny's onto something, though. The album sidesteps the grand narratives found in structured literature, opting for a mosaic of warnings, a clever maneuver that intensifies its relevance and accessibility.
Let's not forget cinema, friends. The album feels like a non-linear film, akin to the works of Kubrick or Gilliam, directors who dissect our reality and reassemble it into something unnervingly familiar and unsettling.
Kubrick, Gilliam, visionary filmmakers indeed. Their ability to present reality in a distorted yet understandable manner parallels the unease we find in OK Computer.
True, Mick. It's as though Yorke and Kubrick both explored similar questions of humanity through different mediums.
That's a beautiful comparison, Amelia. Both Kubrick and Yorke share a keen ability to magnify the human condition, turning the societal microscope up to an uncomfortable level.
The microscope metaphor is apt, but let's be critical for a moment. While the album paints this dystopian picture, it stops short of offering the depth or critique you'd find in true dystopian literature.
Oh, Lenny, but isn't it the veiled interpretive quality that propels us toward deep discussion? It may not articulate the dystopian condition as meticulously as Orwell, but it stirs the pot.
I insist that the album does more than stir the pot. It's the very ambiguity and lack of resolution that reflect the inexorable complexities of our human state.
Perhaps the album's potency lies in its capacity to be both vividly real and enigmatically abstract, much like the best dystopian tales.
Well said, Hal. Every listen is an opportunity to peel another layer, to uncover new facets, just as you would when unraveling the depth of a Bradbury or Orwell masterpiece.
And it's in those layers where the album solidifies its relationship with the dystopian genre, even without the clearly defined narrative. Quite the achievement, I must grudgingly admit.
We must commend Radiohead for tapping into the zeitgeist with such craft. It is not a mere reflection, but a conversation with our own dystopian realities, past, present, and perhaps future.
Indeed, a time capsule as well as a timeless critique. As always, you all bring illuminating insights to the table. Shall we dig deeper into the alienation and technological disconnection in our next segment? We turn now to the commentary on alienation and disconnection in an age marked by technological advancement, themes central to OK Computer. Mick, how do you interpret these themes from an anthropological perspective?
Well, Hal, OK Computer is truly a mirror reflecting the fractured nature of human relationships in the late 20th century. Our tools for connection ironically sow deep seeds of disconnection. This paradox is something we've grappled with since the dawn of civilization, only amplified by the digital era.
That's a profound thought, Mick. This alienation in the digital age is emphatically echoed in contemporary art. Radiohead managed to capture that essence before most others did. The album resonates because it paints a picture of a society that's both crowded and isolating.
Beautifully put, Izzy. The irony isn't lost in the poetry of their lyrics. It's much like finding solace in a Wordsworth poem amidst the Industrial Revolution, except it's Radiohead for the digital generation.
Intriguing analogy, Amelia. Do you think the band foresaw the extent of today's disconnection, even as technology has advanced?
Interrupting. My apologies, Hal, but I think they did more than foresee. It was prescient. These were the undercurrents of that time, and now they've turned into the waves crashing over us in the present.
I'm with Izzy on that. The album doesn't just reflect its time. It's like a beacon that still sheds light on the increasingly complex web of technology and human emotion.
Allow me to interject. Is it all just one big lament, though? The album expresses dread and disconnection, but it's also a cautionary tale. It's not just identifying problems, but also urging us to think, to notice.
Well, while it does that, Lenny, it still captures how, despite progress, we're rowing against a current, aren't we? Losing touch with each other, even as we're supposedly more connected than ever. It's disheartening.
It is quite the conundrum. Mick, what do you think about how this album influenced our understanding of the sociological and anthropological effects of technology?
The influence is significant. It has triggered discourse on the important questions of what community and connection really mean in the modern world. It's a catalyst for a debate that is very much still alive.
Yes, Radiohead contributed to the dialogue about the personal cost of a digitally dominated society. They wrapped these issues in music, which might be the most visceral way to articulate and experience them.
There's a despair that they've harnessed in the music that couldn't be as moving in any other form. And yet, they've done it without losing the essence of what makes us human, our ability to feel.
Speaking of feeling, wasn't there also a hint of hope somewhere? The music invites us to reflect, yes, but also to find a way to reconnect. At least, that's what I got from it.
And that's precisely the power of art, isn't it? To not only challenge, but to imbue us with a possibility, however faint, of hope. Focus to the rather unconventional song structures and time signatures employed in OK Computer. Amelia, I think you'd have some intriguing insights on how these musical choices play into the album's storytelling.
Absolutely, Hal. One thing that strikes a parallel with some of the more bold literary narratives is their subversion of form. Just as Joyce fragmented the narrative structure in Ulysses, songs like Paranoid Android and Pyramid Song are remarkable in their departure from standard verse-chorus-verse structure. It's as if each section of the song is a chapter in a novel, contributing to a larger, more complex story.
I agree with that notion, Amelia. And from a technical perspective, the band's use of odd meters and the disorienting syncopation in Let Down provokes this almost palpable sense of unease that matches the album's theme of technological dysphoria. It's a smart way to have the structure echo the subject matter.
Indeed, jazz, and I find the progression of chords in No Surprises poignantly beautiful, yet despairing, a lullaby that sings us into submission within the modern machine.
That's a very romantic way to look at it, Amelia. Though we cannot overlook that this was a risk for Radiohead. They could have alienated their audience with this sort of experimentation.
Maybe, Lenny, but they didn't. And like all good art, it challenges us. Radiohead pushed the boundaries of what mainstream listeners were accustomed to, and it paid off.
Jazz, Lenny, you both raise valid points. The experimentation might well be reflective of the chaos of the times, the boldness of stepping into the unknown. This album was, in a way, pioneering uncharted territories of sound, akin to the explorations of the digital age.
Mick, that's an excellent analogy, though I must say it was less about chaos and more about a transcendent coherence. Think about the architectural beauty of Karma Police, for instance. The song is a remarkable tapestry that weaves itself more intricately with every listen.
Amelia's right, and I feel like OK Computer, with its atypical structures, is encouraging us to reflect on the fragmented nature of our modern consciousness, how we process reality in disjointed, nonlinear ways.
Hal, I'm curious about your take on this, particularly regarding philosophical storytelling through these song structures.
Thank you, Jazz. The disjointed nature of the compositions on OK Computer, to me, serves as a mirror to the human psyche grappling with information overload. The album doesn't just tell a story. It inhabits a space where the narrative is perpetually unfolding in unpredictable patterns, much like our thoughts in the digital age.
I admire all your interpretations, but let's ground this with a touch of skepticism. Can we really ascribe such lofty notions to what might simply be an act of experimentation? Is there a danger of reading too much into the band's innovations?
Lenny, there's merit in questioning the intent, but art is a dialogue, isn't it? It's not just what's being presented, but also how it resonates, how it's interpreted and repurposed by the audience. It's clear that OK Computer has become a narrative of dislocation, musical and social, whether by design or happenstance.
That's beautifully said, Izzy, though I believe there's enough evidence in Radiohead's body of work to suggest that their artistic choices are deliberate. There's a why to their how.
And perhaps that's the most striking beauty of OK Computer. Its layers cater to both the intellectual and the instinctual, offering a myriad of ways to be experienced and deciphered.
I think we can all agree that this album, through its bold structures, has enriched the tapestry of contemporary music. Though we may interpret it differently, its impact is undeniable. Shall we move on to our next segment? So, let's dive into the politics of OK Computer. Lenny, you've always had a keen eye for spotting sociopolitical undercurrents in art. What's your take on Radiohead's political messaging in this album?
Tom Yorke's cryptic lyrics certainly invite political interpretation. In No Surprises, the biting irony against the capitalist machine is evident. It's a scathing rebuke of a soul-sucking system. While some may argue it's on the nose, I find it deeply layered.
Spot on, Lenny. The subtlety of Fitter Happier is like an Orwellian dictum. Radiohead converted alienation and dispossession into a sonic landscape, which for me is an echo of the protests of the 60s and 70s. Quite a resurrection of the politically charged music of that era.
I won't argue with the album's political undertones, but I must say, Tom Yorke's anxieties transcend mere political commentary. They extend to existential dread that's not bound by any single political moment. Although it's hard to overlook electioneering, which unequivocally thrusts us into the political arena.
I understand your perspective, Izzy, but in my view, electioneering is where they stumble. It reeks of teenage angst rather than the sophisticated political critique that I think they're capable of.
That's rather harsh, Lenny. Perhaps it's a directness that's needed. Amidst the subtlety of the other tracks, electioneering punches through with an urgency that's quite compelling. It doesn't meander, it's raw, it's rough, and it's real.
And let's not ignore the element of consumerism. Look at Paranoid Android, a title referencing The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's almost like a jab at society's consumption of tech as the new opiate of the masses.
A fair point, Jazz, but
Sorry to cut in, Lenny, but jazz is touching on something crucial. The album is a dialogue, not a diatribe. It's raising awareness, and whether we see it as sophisticated or not, it's provoking this very discussion, so it's effective.
Amelia has a point. Whether it's done elegantly or with a sledgehammer, Radiohead has ignited a conversation. The album is woven with the threads of consumerism, corporatism, and a fear of an Orwellian future that's as relevant now as it was then.
To that end, Karma Police seems to stand out as a cry against the corporatized control of the individual, doesn't it? A call to balance in a world tilting wildly out of control.
All very compelling insights. The multifaceted political dimensions of OK Computer continue to provoke, whether we're grappling with the subtle artistry or the brash directness of the lyrics. The mixture of poetic and the severe in these songs clearly mirrors the complex political landscape of the late 90s, and arguably of our time as well. Now, let's dive into the visual language of OK Computer. The album artwork and promotional materials really broaden our understanding of Radiohead's message. Izzy, how do you see the integration of these visuals with the album's narrative?
The artwork is an inseparable part of the album's DNA. Stanley Donwood's images are like brushstrokes of paranoia and modern chaos, echoing the music's dissonance. I feel the scattered texts and the bleak dystopian landscapes on the sleeve are interacting with the lyrics, creating a haunting visual echo chamber.
I couldn't agree more. It's a complete Gesamtkunstwerk, a total work of art. The album cover alone, with its distorted, almost cubist highway, paints the alienation we wrangle with when Tom York murmurs, the panic, the vomit. It's utterly visceral.
Perfectly put, Amelia. And consider how this method of total artwork envelops you in.
If I may jump in here, I appreciate the notion of Gesamtkunstwerk, but isn't it a stretch? Are we really suggesting an equivocation between Radiohead's album and the operas of Wagner? The art of OK Computer doesn't create a narrative as much as it allows the listener to isolate snapshots of modern disaffection.
Yes, Mick, I see your point, but think about the interconnectivity, how the artistic mediums support and enhance each other. The totality that can be Wagnerian in scope does not diminish by being filtered through a modern lens.
Still, Mick, you have to admit, it cultivated an entire aesthetic. There's a brilliance in how it approaches the fans. Amelia, don't you think it was strategic?
Absolutely, Jazz. The visuals formed a bridge to the personal, to the subjective experience of music.
Jazz, I hear you, but strategic feels too calculated. It was synergistic, sure, but above all, authentic. It invited fans into Radiohead's worldview.
Lenny, you've been quiet. Where do you stand on the album's visual components?
the visuals are apt, no argument there. Though I must say, amidst all this praise, we risk downplaying the album's music. After all, without the music, the art alone.
But it's a synthesis, Lenny. Isn't that where true artistry lies? In the layers?
Synthesis, yes, but let's not inflate the role of the artwork to more than a complementary facet of what is essentially an auditory experience.
He has a point. We're not dealing with a silent film after all. The music speaks volumes on its own.
Agreed. But together, the music and the artwork are in powerful dialogue. They reflect the spirit of the era and amplify each other's message.
And what a stark, resonant message that is. Can we say then that the visuals, the chaotic line work, the cold and impersonal landscapes are all in service of this grand, albeit disenchanted narrative?
They certainly give that impression, Jazz. It's the amalgamation that deepens the listener's engagement beyond the auditory. Amelia, your final thoughts.
We've seen this use of art and music before, but never quite as pointedly resonant with its era. Even today, when I see bleached skeletal trees and pixelated urban sprawls, I hear, "Okay, computer."
Well, this discourse shows us the enduring dialogue between music and visual art, and Radiohead utilized it masterfully to galvanize a connection with their audience. Now let's turn to a rather different angle. Let's delve into the critical reception and legacy of OK Computer. Jazz, can you start us off by discussing the album's influence on the music industry and artists today?
Absolutely, Hal. So OK Computer initiated a seismic shift in what was expected from mainstream rock. It broke the mold, the cascading effect of which inspired a new wave of artists who saw that success didn't require adherence to the norm. Even today, its fingerprints are all over indie and alternative scenes.
That's true, Jazz, and kudos for mentioning its enduring impact. I can't help but reflect on how the album initially split critics. Some saw it as pretentious, while others called it a masterpiece. But as we've moved forward, it's fascinating to see it almost universally revered.
Yes, it's remarkable how the perception softened, isn't it? Initially, the complexity was off-putting to some. Now those same intricacies are celebrated. I think it's a testament to the album's depth.
I concur, Amelia. Speaking of depth, let's not overlook the role of the technological landscape in amplifying the band's vision, not just in their music, but through how they communicated with their audience.
Interrupting, but aptly said, Izzy. It was also one of the first albums to utilize the internet for promotion, which, looking back, was quite revolutionary for its time.
All well and good, but let's not inflate its importance. While I'll concede that OK Computer has a legacy, suggesting its critical perception changed dramatically over time is a bit of an overstatement. Its initial acclaim was significant. Those who were confused by its genius were always in the minority.
Interesting point, Lenny. The initial polarized reception has certainly homogenized over time.
Agreed, and Lenny's point is fair. Though there's something to be said for how its message has aged. Early critiques didn't always see the prophetic nature of the album, something that's only become clearer with time.
That prophetic element speaks volumes. It's like revisiting an old text and finding new meanings. It reflects changes in the world and ourselves, which is why I believe OK Computer remains so compelling.
Absolutely, Amelia. The album's narrative feels even more pertinent now than it did in the late 90s. The themes of alienation, technology's grip on society, it's almost prescient.
It's fascinating to see something from the past hold up a mirror to the present. It's a rare achievement and speaks to the creative tour de force that is OK Computer.
It's that timeless quality that feeds its legend. Every new generation of musicians seems to discover it and find inspiration.
Which brings us to an essential aspect of the discussion. The notion of an album as a living, breathing work that gains layers as society evolves around it.
Hal, while our nostalgia might tint our view, we must remember to maintain a critical eye. Not every praise is well-founded, and not every criticism is unwarranted, even in retrospect.
A sage reminder, Lenny, to temper our admiration with analysis. This album challenges us to reassess and think critically, and perhaps that might be its most profound legacy of all. All right, let's delve into segment 10, ladies and gentlemen. We're reflecting on the prophetic nature of OK Computer and how it resonates in our contemporary digital age. Lenny, considering the landscape today, which predictions made by the album have we seen unfold?
Looking at the track Fitter Happier, the album had a finger on the pulse of modern society's anxieties. We're engulfed in screens, exploited by the gig economy, obsessed with productivity. It's chilling, really.
It is indeed. The album articulated a cultural prophecy about isolation and the malaise of the digital world that's undeniable in today's society.
I agree with you there, Mick. Yet I think it also missed the mark on the potential for collective action that technology has enabled. Movements today rally around hashtags and social media, something OK Computer wasn't necessarily optimistic about.
That's a beautiful counterpoint, Izzy. While the album does suggest gloom, we've witnessed how technology can unite us for causes of love and humanity. It's like the dual nature of Shakespeare's quill, capable of both tragedy and romance.
Well put, Amelia. And speaking of unity, the album didn't completely foresee the emergence of the global community connected through the internet. We have a way to bridge our differences like never before.
But, Jazz, let's not wear rose-colored glasses here. The division is as persistent as ever. The algorithmic bubbles serve to disconnect as much as connect. The album got that part right. The alienation is real.
Can't argue with that. The song No Surprises embodies a surrender to the status quo that you can see in society's acceptance of invasive technology. It's like we saw it coming, but let it happen anyway.
That's an astute observation, Izzy. And to add, electioneering resonates with the political tumult we see globally. Though not a direct prediction, the anger and activism do align with the album's sentiments.
It seems that even though technology's canvas has become larger and more intricate than the album could depict, its core message about disconnection and dehumanization holds true. We're at this juncture where our tools both combat and cause our issues.
That's a profound takeaway, Hal. The album serves as a stark reminder to handle technology with care, as a servant, not master, to our human experience.
Indeed, Jazz. Tom York's words almost serve as a guide to navigating our journey with technology, cautiously and, dare I say, hopelessly romantic in our pursuit for authenticity.
True, Amelia. Though, I must say, we ought to be cautious of romanticizing such a critical lens. It's a warning, first and foremost.
A valid point, Lenny. It behooves us to heed these messages from the past while shaping our digital future. Let's continue to reflect on this as we move into the final segment of our discussion. As we draw our discussion to a close, I think it's important to reflect on the enduring qualities of OK Computer, its place in both history and culture, and the personal impact it's had on each of us. Mick, would you like to begin our final thoughts?
Certainly, Hal. I must say this discussion has solidified my understanding of OK Computer's historical moment. The album encapsulates an era on the cusp of a technological crescendo, and these questions about humanity's future are just as potent today. It's an album that, decades later, continues to provoke thought, and I predict it will remain a cornerstone in the chronicle of human thought.
I wholeheartedly agree, Mick. Your historical insights have been illuminating. Looking at the album today, it's clear that OK Computer teaches us about love, humanity, and art in a way that few pieces of the period have managed to do. The prescience of its themes has only become more relevant in our technologically saturated age, and I feel it will continue to resonate deeply for years to come.
That's an interesting take, Amelia, and I appreciate your romantic perspective. The album's influence on contemporary artists and even the technological landscape, as I've noted before, it's indelible. OK Computer has become a lens through which we view our progress, and sometimes our regress. We're living in a world that Radiohead warned us about, making those prophecies worth revisiting.
Radiohead's prophecies. Jazz, I respect your points on influence, but let's remain critical. Not all of the album's predictions have come to fruition. Some of it is happenstance, aligning with societal trends that were already emerging. We must differentiate between prophetic wisdom and the coincidental.
Lenny, your skepticism is vital, and indeed not all has come to pass. Yet its cultural prophecies about alienation, disconnection, and even certain political issues are alarmingly accurate. Today's dialogues about technology and privacy find their echoes in OK Computer. It's a dialogue that's far from over.
I must say, I'm inspired by the passion and range of thoughts here. The philosophical core of OK Computer, which we've all touched upon, connects us to something universal. Whether as a dire warning or a source of connection, it's an album that transcends its time.
Spot on, Hal. That's why I can't help but envision where OK Computer will stand in future discussions of the intersection between technology and the human spirit. It's emblematic of a moment when the music pushed us to look ahead, hence its forever place in history.
Jazz, you've beautifully articulated what many of us are feeling. Radiohead created something timeless because they dared to question. And I think, regardless of our differing views, it's the questioning that keeps us coming back to OK Computer.
It's indeed the questioning, Amelia, a nod to Socrates, perhaps. But that lasting legacy is largely why we're here, isn't it? You've all sparked new insights for me, and despite our occasional disputes, that's the hallmark of a remarkable roundtable.
I'll give you that, Mick. We may not always agree, but the discourse has been thoroughly stimulating. It seems, regardless of where we each stand, OK Computer remains a pivotal point of departure for any serious discourse on modern music's intersection with societal and technological critique.
Well said, everyone. OK Computer continuously invites us to question and explore. And just like today's roundtable, it thrives on our diverse interpretations. It's been a pleasure moderating this discussion. Shall we bring this to a poignant conclusion?
Let's do that, Hal. In studying OK Computer, we study ourselves, our fears, our hopes, and our inexhaustible quest to understand our place within this ever-changing world. Here's to Radiohead for igniting such a crucial conversation. Thank you all for a wonderful discussion.